Relational Database Service, which we'll call RDS, is a collection of AWS services for managed relational databases. We call the databases managed because AWS takes care of all the backups, software updates, and infrastructure for the database. If you compare this to installing your own database on an EC2 instance, you would then be responsible for figuring out backups and redundancy, as well as updating the software with security patches. With a managed database, there are even more conveniences like configuration options in the web console and the ability to simply create read replicas. Currently, Amazon offers MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQL Server, MariaDB, Oracle, and Amazon's own Aurora database through RDS. Each carries a different price and different configuration and connection options. When picking a database type, you'll also pick the type of EC2 instance that it will be running on. With this, you can decide what type of performance your database will need in response to the load it will be under. Honestly, if you want to use a relational database in AWS, I highly recommend finding an option in RDS. You may already be using a relational database that isn't available through RDS, but if you're moving to the cloud, then you should really consider switching if possible. Having Amazon not only manage but guarantee the stability of your database, often crucial parts of any infrastructure, is such a huge benefit. Because AWS is managing the database, you can quickly do things like take snapshots of your data or increase the size of the EC2 instance being used to back the database. Doing either one of these actions with your own database would be much more difficult and dangerous. Security is often one of the most important aspects of any database. We've all heard stories about enterprise companies with databases completely open to the outside world. Don't do that. With RDS, access is controlled via those trusty security groups. By configuring the security group for your instantiated RDS database, you can allow your applications access to the database, but block any other connections. You can even configure ways for BI tools to connect so that users can query those databases. RDS pricing depends on the type of database you're using, as well as the region it's created in. Since the base resource that these databases are being installed on are EC2 instances, the price is higher if you're using a larger instance type. Let's look at an example of a MySQL database running on a standard extra large instance. With 4 CPUs, 16 gigabytes of memory, and high network performance, you'll be looking at 35 cents per hour. That's around $8.50 a day. That's a little steep. Now, this extra large instance is going to be pretty awesome. You might not need something that production ready, and there are definitely instances that can get down to a cent an hour. Also, since MySQL is open source and there's no license needed, you can expect that other database types like SQL Server or Oracle cost a lot more per hour. If you're interested in using something in AWS that isn't a relational database, like a NoSQL or document-based database, you'll be happy to know that AWS also provides other options. We'll be looking at those in the next module when we take a look at DynamoDB and Redshift.